lines 14 through 28.
Which page?
I'm still on page 2.
Okay, thank you.
No, I'm on page 2. Page 2, definitions, interpretations, conflict.
So these sections are definitions.
Yeah.
14 to 28. And these are.
No.
So 14 through 28 are the definitions that really tie this ordinance to the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. And so the definitions that are defined either in the Medical Marijuana Act or else in federal law are the definitions that will be used here in this ordinance. And there's a clear statement here that this ordinance, and again, this is having to defer to that statute and the immunities that are in the statute for individuals, that this ordinance shall not limit those immunities. So there's no question that we are going to follow the MMMA. And to the extent the MMMA supersedes this ordinance, where there's a conflict, we'll get to the issues that you were talking about growers and cultivation. If it's in violation of the MMMA, they're not going to be able to get a license under this ordinance. So that will take it through 28.
Okay. Any questions from council members? Okay, let's do lines then 30 through 45.
All right, so then the Medical Marijuana Act requires that the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs issue rules. And this first section D, again, in the definitions or purpose clause, says that all activities have to be in compliance with the state rules. And in the next section, 38 through 45, I think you said that there's no non-conforming status for any illegal operation. And that's what that section is. Any uses engaged in cultivation or processing of marijuana or medical marijuana or testing without obtaining a license is not to be in a legally established use and therefore is not entitled to legal non-conforming status. This is the grandfather provision in terms of the zoning ordinance.
I see any questions?
Just quick.
Yes.
And I'm sure it's spelled out later. So in the legislative intent, we have provisioning centers, medical marijuana grower facilities, medical marijuana compliance facilities, et cetera. And then under definitions and interpretation, we have provisioning centers and medical marijuana cultivation facilities. So grower facilities obviously falls within that. Is there a reason why this cultivation centers
It's just in a general language rather than a defined term.
Okay. And that is defined somewhere?
Yes.
Yeah, I see.
In fact, it is defined. Cultivation is in the next page.
Okay.
All right, let's go to page 3. We're going to look at lines 1 through 16.
1 through 16 basically is a definition of building. It's a building that includes, it has walls and is separated, and it becomes important that you define terms in drafting an ordinance or a statute, because when you refer to it later, it carries with it that defined meaning. It describes a building, and with common pipes and ducts and boilers, and does not include tent sheds or private garages or stables or accessory properties. So the license is only going to be applicable to a building, commercial building, by the way.
Patricia?
So when we talk about this, when we talk about the definition of a building, I just want to make sure that we're one, covering everything, and two, that there's no ambiguity, excuse me. So when I see the definition of a building, intended and or used for shelter or enclosure of a person or chattel, I want to make sure that can't also be interpreted as a residence. That's the first thing. The other thing, you talk about buildings, but then you also talk about establishments. On page 18 in particular, when we talk about minimal operation standards of a medical marijuana grower facility, we talk about that, number 3, it has to be done indoors or in an enclosed greenhouse. Can indoors be a building? I mean, what does that mean? So, and then going down for 6, it talks about,
Oh,
I'm just,
I know, if you could, because, yeah,
I'm sorry, am I doing too much here?
well,
I'm sorry.
ask your questions about building, and then when we get
Okay.
to that, then you can come back and say, you know,
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
if that's okay, because we just get
Yeah.
all over the place,
Yes,
jumping
ma'am.
all over.
So the definition of a building, I want to make sure that it's consistent, because as I'm reading some stuff, it looks like it might mean different things. So when those things come about, I'll say that's what I meant back there for building.
Understand.
Apologize for that. I just wanted-
No, that's okay, not a problem. So, do you believe that the definition of building does not also include a residential property?
Well, it could.
Okay,
Well, no, and does not, I mean, it could as a structure, but we have a specific exception there about private garages on residential properties. I mean, but you have, that's the definition of what a building is, but what is important is when you look at it in the paragraph that has the regulation, that's when you need to look at it. I mean, it could include a residence, because of the way it's structured, but that doesn't mean, there's nothing in here that says any of these facilities can be located in residential areas.
okay,
So,
all right,
sort of like a car having different makes,
yeah, okay.
And I'm sorry, I got that
Go ahead.
something. 18 is chapter means this chapter. Again, these are amendments to the Code of Ordinances. City is City of Lansing, Michigan. Commission means the Medical Marijuana Commission that is established in this ordinance that we'll get to later. Council or City Council is Lansing City Council. We have the definition, and again, these are only definitions. Cultivation or cultivate means all phases of growth of marijuana, preparing, packaging of marijuana, and it's to the extent permitted by the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, extraction, okay? And so we wanted to have an all-encompassing definition of cultivation. Again, it's a defined term. The key is what does the regulation say later on in this ordinance when it uses the term cultivation. Disqualifying felony is a felony. This is right out of the MMMA, making an individual ineligible to serve as a primary caregiver. Medical marijuana, again, its definition meets the requirements of medical marijuana under the MMMA and other applicable law. And then the commission means this medical marijuana commission that we are establishing. You are establishing if you adopt the ordinance in this chapter.
Okay, that takes